Hello, I'm William Pace. Tonight's show is on filmmaking. Filmmaking takes place outside of the mainstream and is commonly called independent filmmaking. Since the introduction of DV technology, the means of production have become more democratized and economically viable. Filmmakers can conceivably shoot and edit a film, create and edit the sound and music, and mix the final cut on a home computer. However, while the means of production may be democratized, financing, traditional distribution, and marketing remain difficult to accomplish outside the traditional system. In the past, most independent filmmakers have relied on film festivals to get their films noticed and sold for distribution and production. However, the internet has allowed for the relatively inexpensive distribution of independent films on websites such as YouTube. As a result, several companies have emerged to assist filmmakers in getting independent movies seen and sold via mainstream internet marketplaces, often adjacent to the popular Hollywood titles. Since internet movie distribution, independent filmmakers who choose to forego a traditional distribution deal now have the ability to reach global audiences. There's more to come on the William Pace Show. Stay with us. Good evening, I'm William Pace. Thanks so much for tuning us in tonight. My guest is Janine Phibbs. You might remember her from being on the last show. She's an author here in Dayton, and she has a project. One of her books is going to be made into a film. So I invited her to be on the program tonight since our show is on film making. Thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
So which book is going to be made into a film?
Well, it would be actually a short story from one of my books. It's At Wit's End is the name of the book. And then Compound Fractures is the short story that's going to be put into a screenplay. And then hopefully will be filmed sometime this year. Okay.
So both books are being condensed into one film project then?
No, just one short story from one. I have several short stories in At Wit's End and At Wit's End 2. And then that particular short story will be put into that screenplay form.
So At Wit's End 2 is going...
One. Has the short story in it.
So which of the three ones are going to be the project?
That's well, At Wit's End has several poetry, some poems, narratives, and short stories. And the short story that's in there, Compound Fractures, is the name of the short story. That's what's being put into screenplay form.
And is that going to be the name of it?
That is correct. That'll be the name of the film.
Okay, that's what we want to know. So, you know, now today, film making is becoming, independent filmmaking is becoming more possible because of the various development in technology and so forth. And many film producers are taking to local festivals, you know, to get their projects out there.
Right.
Do you think that films can change the lives of people and help people to see themselves in a different light?
Absolutely, especially from the writing aspect of it, that I'm able to write the things that come to mind, and then also being able to reach out to a wider audience, especially locally. So as far as the getting the films into a larger audience with social media and all of that, so absolutely, it definitely can work with a wider audience.
And there's such an enormous area of different phases of producing film, because you have the writing part of it, you have the creative part of it, you have translating it from are you really rewriting it from the book? Are you writing the script as well?
Well, no, I'm actually having help with the writing the screenplay, which would be helping out is Tom Dallas. And he's also one of the local filmmakers here, and helping out. He's going to show me how to do all of that, and hopefully it'll be something that I'll be able to learn as well, and then maybe diving into that as well. So with the films I've helped out on, I've been a production manager, production assistant, and also location scout. So that's actually become very much of a challenge.
It's really a big, big project because there's so many components to film producing.
Yes.
You know, and so when you're, say, for example, scalping, locating the perfect set.
Right.
What do you have in mind?
Well, it just depends on the actual project itself. So just scouting is just involved in reaching out to friends and family, making lots of phone calls, emails, driving around looking for the perfect place depending on the actual project involved. So it could be an interior, an exterior, but we have to secure that place, get permission to do so, and then hopefully move forward with actually filming.
Now, are you responsible when you're identifying the location? Are you responsible for the extras, the supers, the people that are standing around, and all of that?
No, I'm not responsible for that, but definitely is involved in the project itself. Would be the filmmaker, the director, all of the other actors. We just all reach out to each other, and then we start a sort of like social media chat room, so we can all keep in contact with each other.
Great, great. So everybody's on the same page.
Absolutely.
What do you like about the whole creative process of films? You know, from the writing part of it to the producing part of it to the whole spectrum of it. What do you like about it most?
Basically watching this creativity unfold just right before your very eyes and looking at it from the director's standpoint. So you're filming from one direction, then you turn around and you film from an opposite direction. So then watching that unfold, and then also then all of a sudden it becomes an actual film. So I love all of it.
The whole thing from the start to the finish, because it is a process.
Yes.
You know, it starts with a thought, you know, the writing part of it, you know, what's going to be an interesting story that people want to know about, and that's going to hopefully inspire people, lift people up, you know, encourage people. I think that's what the real art of film is to do, is to, you know, help us to change our way of viewing things so that we have a greater understanding in the process, you know. And I have found many films, so many of them, like Places in the Heart, you know. I love the movies that tell a story of someone overcoming something really big, you know, like Places in the Heart, when she was so determined to save her farm. You know, and you're just rooting for her to do it, you know. And you know, movies that tell a story and help you to change your whole perspective on things. And help you to have maybe a broader compassion, you know. It's a very powerful medium. It really is.
Very much so. What I enjoy, I think, just seeing the actors and the actresses just portraying a whole new set of characters and involved in that. That's normally where I'm not in front of the camera. Behind the scenes is where I prefer to be, and it's wonderful to watch.
So you prefer behind the camera?
Very much so.
Okay. And well, they both are important. What goes on in front of the camera and what goes on behind the camera, you need, you know, you have to have them both to be able to do the film. So do you have any particular actors you have lined up to be in your film project yet? Not
specifically. I'm working with Eric Anderson, who is the filmmaker, and he's the director, and we're kind of working together.
So the casting is yet to be determined.
Is yet to be determined. I could always be an extra in the background.
Okay. Or you have two creative children. You can have one of your children in it too.
That is true. That is true.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the program tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There's more to come on the William Pace Show. Stay with us. You'll have the time of your life. I saw a man, he danced with his wife. Good evening. Thanks so much for tuning us in. Our show tonight is on filmmaking, and my guest is Tom Dallas. Thank you so much for being on the program tonight.
Well, thank you.
Tell me, how did you get started in working in film?
I've been working as an independent filmmaker and documentary filmmaker for about 20 years. It was just kind of it was a church that I was attending at the time, wanted to make some studies for home study. And so I thought, well, let's put it to film. Let's make it like a documentary. And that kind of got me interested in it. And out of that, I started making documentary films, and made about 30 since then, and then worked on feature films and script writing and all.
Wonderful. So you started just as a hobby then, and then it just grew from that as an interest then?
Correct.
And so forth. What do you think people are looking for when they go to see films today? What are they paying attention to? Are they paying attention more to the storyline, or what do you think?
Well, I think for the most part, people go for entertainment, and it's the job of the filmmaker to entertain. And that can come in a variety of forms, and everyone has a different genre of entertainment that they prefer: science fiction, drama, comedy. But they're still telling a story.
Basically entertainment.
It's right, and so we are there to entertain.
Inspire, would you say?
Oh, well, hopefully that's what a good entertainment will do, you know.
To lift people up.
Absolutely.
Now I know you have a project that's coming up soon, and it's called Compound Fracture. So tell me about that.
That's a book that Janine Phibbs had written. And I've written several scripts, and so she's asked me to help transfer that from a book into a screenplay format. And so I'll be working on that with her.
What is the process, taking it from a book to a screenplay?
Well, when you write a novel, you know, you're very descriptive. But whenever you're writing a screenplay, not as much, because the director is bringing his art or her art into that process. And so you have to put more of an emphasis upon the dialogue and think about things that, especially in independent film, you also have to think within budget constraints and so forth.
Yes. So the storyteller, when you're writing like a novel, so forth, taking it from the storytelling to actually dialoguing and conversation and things like that. So in that process of transferring from one format to another format of storytelling, then to actually two people dialoguing in a film, is there a certain technique, certain tools you use to get from one to the other?
Well, there are script writing tools.
That's what I meant.
And you learn how to write a script. A story is actually told at least 3 times in the process by the time the viewer watches it. You have the person writing it, whether it's in a novel and then transformed into a script, or a script writer who puts it in a screenplay. That's the first stage. And then you have the directing and putting it on the film itself and that story. And that's why you have a director who helps the actors to get the interpretation that he or she as a director sees for that project. And then the final storytelling of that is done through editing. And the editors tell the story as well, because there's
so you got several people telling the story. So basically, when you started from the novel or the book, you know, you got one person, but then the film, when it becomes a film project or screenplay, then you get many people telling the story.
Correct. I always tell people.
I guess even the costume
person
is telling the story through the period of the clothing and things.
Yes.
And even the set where it's all, and the time of set, you know, it's just so many people So it sounds like you're having more storytellers or a collaboration of storytellers.
Well, I'm also a photographer. And as a photographer, I can work independently and tell a story in my photography. A writer, I also write, can tell a story. But when you put a film together, it's a collaborative work of a group of individuals telling a story. And as you said, it can be the set designer. It can be who's telling a story. It's also the makeup artist and the wardrobe personnel. Every part of the crew, they're helping with that story. And everyone's important putting together, combining this story.
Yeah, and that's why I like film, because you have so many different collaborators, people contributing to it to make this unique art. And but as an independent film producer, it's becoming more the way to go about getting films before the public. In other words, many film writers find it easier just to work locally and get their projects in terms of film festivals and things like that. Isn't just here in Ohio, we have a film that's up for an Oscar, about the Glasgow, the factory, and so it seems to be more of a way of doing it nowadays, as considering in the old days where you just had to go to Hollywood and you had to be in one of the big studios and so forth. So do you believe that the way films are produced today has changed the whole dynamic of the industry?
Well, it has. We can now make films easily in Ohio as opposed to Los Angeles, as you said. Now, still the major the networks or places of industry are going to be Los Angeles and New York. And it used to be Chicago, but now it's Atlanta. And other places are growing. Nashville, for example, has a strong film community. And Ohio has really grown with that. And so with different aids now through editing and different types of cameras, and things aren't actually shot on film, but are digitally made, it's now more affordable that individuals can make films, and so actors don't always have to be out in Los Angeles, although that is still the #1 market.
Wonderful. I wanted to ask too, would you come back after this project is completed?
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
Compound Fractures. And when do you think that will be out?
That I don't know, because once we take it and have it to script, then it goes to the director. In this case, Eric Andreessen, and he will film it, and he'll schedule the shooting and all of that, and then we have to have it edited after that. And that can be
it's a process.
It is,
and it may take maybe a year, or sometimes I remember one movie set on the shelf. What was it? Blue Skies with Jessica Lange.
Oh, yeah.
It took 2 or 3. It was sitting on the shelf. It had been filmed several years before, and she got an Oscar for it, but it wasn't until the film was shot like 5 or 6 years before she got the Oscar, before it was released. So it's a process, and many films take several years to complete.
They can.
Thank you so much for being on the program, Tom. I would like for you to come back when the project is complete, and we'll show a preview of it.
Okay, William, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You have a good
Thank
day.
you. There's more to come on the William Pace Show. Stay with us.
They do things that they don't do on Broadway.
Good evening, I'm William Pace. Thanks so much for tuning us in. My next guest is Rusty Pecksark. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Okay. Thanks so much for being on the program tonight. Good to see you.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about films, because you've been working in film for a long time, since 1963.
63.
Okay, just a few years ago. How did you get started?
My parents bought a home movie camera, and I took it out in the backyard, and I was moving little plastic dinosaurs around and little little Indians that I had painted up to look like cavemen. And I sort of set the camera up and I animated the things moving around, and that was my introduction to filmmaking.
Like home movies and things
Yes.
like that. Okay. And from there, you started working on various projects, but you have been probably exposed to the various formats of film. If you say you started in 1963,
Right, yeah.
then you started with 8mm.
Right,
to
8mm, and then in the late 60s we switched over to what was called Super 8. In 73 I started attending Wright State, and my entire tenure there at Wright State was involved with editing and shooting Super 8 film. The late 70s and then got into the 80s, we switched over to video. We got into what we called the first portable video was called the Sony Portapacks. You probably remember those.
I do.
We had a big giant tape recorder on our shoulder, and we had a big camera with a big cord on it.
Well, you know, I was just telling someone the other day, my life on the air over the last number of years, 30 years, has been on almost every format that you can imagine. In the early days when the show started, you know, it was like on a big 1-inch reel, which was like a big encyclopedia. And I remember when the shows were sent to the station, they went out in this big box, you know, and now it's all done, you know, on in high definition and on a smaller format, and you're sending things on DVD and so forth formats, and sometimes you can just upload it on the air and send it to them, you know. So
and then sound was the same way as the way video went, from big 2-inch reels of film, and then the early days of Miami Valley Cable Council, everything was on something called a 3/4 U-matic. And there was like a large, think of a VHS cassette on steroids. It was a big thing, and it was 3/4-inch tape, and you had to edit it offline, and it was interesting. But it's gone.
We have come a long way.
Yes,
a long way.
From that down to something called an SD card. This is the size of a stamp. And you could put an encyclopedia on one of those now.
So you're also involved in Film Dayton, right?
Yes, Lisa Grigsby is the head of Film Dayton. We have meetings once a week or once a month at Wiley's Comedy Club.
Okay.
And basically, it's a chance for people from all aspects of filmmaking, from writers, directors, editors, actors, sound people, to get together. And we did a show. We did a short 6-part series that was called Freak Club back several years ago. And it was just a collaboration between professionals and people who had been in a little while to people just starting out. And we put together a 6-part series from people who were involved with Film Dayton.
Great. I understand that you're going to be doing the sound for the film Compound Fractures.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been working with Eric, and I'm working with Tom and Janine for quite a few years now.
And that's a project that is soon to go to production.
Yes.
And expected to come out sometime in the next year or so.
Yep.
And so forth.
Right.
And so what do you like about working with the sound part of the
sound?
film?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I've mentioned that to other people before. I started out, I was doing, PA work, just helping out wherever, you know, moving things around. I sort of got into lighting. And then I realized that when you go into lighting, you set up the lights, get everything all set, and then, okay, you can leave. You got to get out of the room before they can shoot the scene. I got into doing sound because, along with doing home movies and things of that nature, I had the old reel tape recorders, and I did a lot of recording with that, playing guitar and singing, stuff like that. And I realized that if you do sound, you get to stay for everything. You have to stay for everything, get all the scenes.
But you know, as you listen to while you're viewing a film, you know, the audio, the sound plays such an important part. You know, like the wind blowing in the background or the car starting. You know, all of those. We were talking in the previous segment that everyone involved in a film, it tells a story. Right. You know, and that, you know, the people in the audio, they're telling a story, you know, like if it's something that drops very softly, you know, if there's a big boom, you know, and it all helps to tell the story. Yeah,
because you have, just like us talking now, they would be adding music, they could be adding, you know, sound effects. Our background here with the city of Dayton skyline, you could have a little bit of the sound of the city.
Yeah, it tells a story. It tells a story. Lastly, I want to ask you to tell us a little bit about, I want to get your opinion on this, a little bit about what do you think, why people go to the movies? Why do they, you know, do they want to be do they want to be inspired, entertained, maybe come out with a greater understanding of the world? What do you think? All of the above?
All of the above. It depends on the genre. I think earlier Tom had mentioned it's entertainment. Like the Avengers series, entertainment, all the superhero films, escapism, just to get away from the world, the way the world is.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. You know, we talk about the economy and the problems of today, but you know, in every economic depression, you know, there are people that thrive, and during the Great Depression, Hollywood thrived. They thrived, you know, because every time people had a nickel, a dime, a quarter, they went to the movies. They were trying to escape, you know. So that's a very interesting point, you know, to escape, you know, from your existence into another world. But mostly, I think the reason I go to see films is to be lifted up. You know, I think about the movies, Places in the Heart. Any movie that shows, you know, someone, the underdog, who has to overcome something, you know, and they do it, you know. Well,
we just gotten through the Christmas season, and of course everybody remembers It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh yeah,
so that's the typical. And the other side, I was going to bring up. You mentioned it before about Julia Reichert and Steve Bogart's film about the glass factory, and they again, just like the last film they did, the Last Truck, which got an Oscar nomination. They have an Oscar nomination for American Factory.
Maybe this is the year.
I hope so.
I'm rooting for them.
Yes.
Thanks so much for being on the show tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There's more to come on the William Pace Show. Stay with us. Gotta go. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.